Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtay here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. AutoLeadStar is pioneering marketing automation in the automotive industry with sophisticated machine learning that future-proofs dealerships' marketing operations and replaces traditional marketing methods. I'm so excited today to welcome Melanie Borden. Melanie has spent the majority of her 14-plus marketing career in the automotive tech industry. She's worked in various atmospheres, from social media startups to a public tech company in consulting, marketing, and business development roles. Melanie is the driver for the marketing vision and strategy from inception to execution for the clients she's worked with. Presently, she's the VP of Marketing for Celebrity Motor Cars, a franchised Highline auto group based out of New York and New Jersey metropolitan area. Melanie develops and implements every single facet of the marketing and advertising strategy and single-handedly built the in-house advertising agency. Melanie, whoa. It's such an honor to have you today on our podcast.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity. This is awesome.
Yes, we are very excited to host you. Your bio talked all about your professional background and all the amazing things that you do. But today's podcast, we're actually going to be focusing on the amazing brand you've built for yourself on social. And for our listeners, I joke that I once commented on Melanie's LinkedIn post and I was blown up for days after that. She's really the celeb of LinkedIn, so comment at your own risk. No, but seriously, your content is amazing. You have so many people engaging. How did it start? Tell us about building your personal brand on social.
Thank you so much. That was such an awesome question. So I love to tell this story because it brings me now to a time that is completely outside of what we've experienced this year for 2020 and COVID. So I was on vacation last Christmas with my boyfriend and we were sitting on a beach and I was trying to think about other ways that I could bring more value, not only to the company that I work for, but the people that work in the company that I work for, as well as myself. And the one area that I really hadn't dove deep into was social media. And I am the person behind the scenes that works with our vendors, whether it's on our paid social strategy or helping our team execute our organic social strategy, but I'd never really done it for myself. So I started thinking about all the different ways that I could bring value. And I thought, why not leverage our sales team and potentially our service team at the dealerships, which the sales team itself at the time was like 70 plus people across the 5 brands. And why not use their voices to not only help them bring in more business, but also bring in more business for the company. And that's really how it got started. So I created a social media branding guide for all of our sales teams. And I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. I mean, I did a lot of research on it, but I was really just going by what I was reading online and what I had seen from other people I followed, and really just tapping into what I've been able to harness working in my department and really putting that on paper to help with the salespeople. So for example, I meet with different tech companies every single month and we talk about performance and we talk about strategy and we talk about our primary market area. And it's really the same concept if you put it in very basic terms with creating your own brand. You really can do the same thing for an individual that you can do for a business. So tapping into that really helped me be able to help them. And so this was around January by the time everything had rolled out and we did some training and I did some one-on-ones and we did some social media workshops. And I started noticing that I wasn't getting as much engagement as I would have liked. And a big part of social media is putting yourself out there and becoming vulnerable, especially with video, So I said, all right, let's do video introductions because this will be a good way to start. And then everyone has this content that they're creating and we can use that video and we can push it out there to the world. And we could also use it within our sales process. So we did the video intros and then I did the video intro and I hated it. And it was terrible for me because I was so awkward on camera. And I just, everyone has their own personal preference about what they're doing and how they're doing it. You know what I mean? So then to take it to the next level, I wanted to be the one that our sales team could look to and say, okay, not only does she do the marketing here, but she knows how to do the marketing for herself. So I took the branding guide that I put together and I essentially started executing on it for myself. So we're talking February by the time that I really had started pushing out my own content. And that's really how it got started.
Wow. So it's really about not just thinking out of the box, but also stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It seems like your biggest motivation and inspiration for this was really being that role model for your service and sales teams, which I think is incredible. And then it took you off on a whole nother journey, which is also amazing. And part of this is content consistency and making sure that you're really putting out good content for your followers and for your brand. How do you find inspiration for that?
I would say that the content that I produce, a large part of the inspiration that I do is from my day-to-day, whether it's the day-to-day in working in the company that I work for and the different people in the different departments that have inspired me along the way, as well as my own personal experience with, raising my children and being a single mom. I think those are the two areas of inspiration, and just overall experience throughout my career of working in the auto industry has really brought me to this place.
Yeah. And I mean, I've told you this before, but when I see your content, I'm just like, wow, how did she come up with this? And where is it from? And it just feels so real. And I think that's part of what's made you so successful. Which brings me to my next question of what do you recommend to others when they're trying to leverage social to build their personal brand? Is it that like just being real and authentic, or finding maybe the balance between personal and professional? Share that with us.
I think the two things that are the pillars or benchmark of creating your own social media profile online is, number one, to be authentic, and number two, to share your story in a way where it will connect with others. Mm-hmm. You can't really start doing social media without a plan. And when I was going through the process of working with some of the people on the sales team, we would talk about, how do they want other people to feel when they read their messages? What makes them different from any other person that's also selling cars? Do you want to incorporate color into, your whole brand experience, so to speak? So there are a lot of different questions that you really need to answer to get the message out before you start messaging. Now, I will have to say that you don't want to think too much about it. You want to give it a little bit of thought, but I wouldn't suggest just starting posting with no plan. So you definitely want to have a plan. You want to be prepared, but you want to also have a story so people get to know the real you, because people will know if it's not the real you. If it's an altered, filtered version of yourself, it's not really what people connect with. People connect with you as a person. And if you're experiencing things or have experienced things in your life and business, people will connect to that and want to be a part of your network.
Yeah, I think that's a great actionable tip also for our listeners to take away. Like, there's just that amount of planning that needs to go into building the brand. And then from there, as long as you're authentic, you can build your story with your content.
Right. And you have to have goals too, right? So with a marketing campaign, you want to have certain KPIs that you can refer back to. And it's the same thing with social media. So how do you know it's working? How do you know that you're doing the right things? You're going to see engagement, and you're also going to see your network grow. Those are the two benchmarks for me, initial ones where you would say, okay, something is doing and it's doing the right way.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that with social media, you have so many opportunities that pop up that you don't necessarily know until you actually start getting into it. So for example, you and I connected through LinkedIn, and this is an opportunity that came my way to be on your podcast. Mm-hmm. So there are many ways to measure the success, but before you can even measure the success and getting back to your plan, you have to identify what your goal is for executing on your social campaign, right? So do you want to create a community? Are you looking to sell a service? Are you looking for a way to communicate internally if you have your own business? Those are all the different ideas or concepts that would go into when you're planning out to do a social campaign.
Yeah, and right now, what would you say are your most successful outlets? I mean, we spoke about LinkedIn a ton, but I also know on Instagram, your content is wonderful there too. So what are your main channels right now?
So originally, when I started this, I really only wanted to focus on one social network, which was LinkedIn, because I saw the most opportunity there as it is just such a growing platform. But the mistake I made was not starting with all the other sites as well. So now what I do is I focus on LinkedIn, I focus on Twitter, I have a focus on YouTube and Instagram, and Facebook I really keep as like my personal space, but all the other social channels is where I focus on. There's a site here in the US, I don't know if it's popular in other countries, it's called Poshmark, which is also a social network. It's a way to, share and sell clothing and shoes and other items. So I'm also active on there as well.
Well, that's good to know. And do you recommend a different voice or tone depending on the channel, or is that consistency and the brand message still very important across all channels?
I think it definitely varies. And part of that is because certain platforms have different character limits. So Twitter has less of a character limit than Instagram and LinkedIn has. But what I've seen so far with creating my Instagram profile a few months back, people seem to respond better to shorter posts versus on LinkedIn, you can have a pretty lengthy post. So it's really all about just feeling it out and seeing what kind of engagement you get. Because everyone is different in terms of what they would see with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I have to ask this question. I know all content now is COVID related and it's been months and months, but you said that you started this kind of right before COVID hit, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It was a great opportunity for COVID to potentially be a catalyst for your brand to really take off because everyone was at home or everyone was spending more time on social. How did the disruption play a role for your brand?
Well, it's interesting because pre-COVID, I would spend time in my car every morning and every evening driving back and forth. And in the role that I have, I would travel to our different dealerships, and I went from doing that to completely working out of my house. So when I say this, people think I'm crazy, but I actually had more time to do other things because I didn't have to get up, get ready, get out, do the commute, drop my kids at school, whatever. I didn't have to do that anymore. So I had this extra time in the morning and I had this extra time in the evening. So it definitely gave me more of an opportunity in terms of time for myself to be able to focus to create some content. But absolutely, when someone once said that to me, I thought, wow, they're right. COVID really did give me a little bit of an edge because I was able to spend more time creating content and started posting more. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to talk about how COVID facilitated a lot of business growth and personal growth, and it's such a crazy, tragic in many cases things that's happened to us. But on the other hand, there are some positives that came out of it, and I think that just like learning how to be flexible, and I recently talked about this on a different podcast, being able to feel comfortable having a conversation from your home because there's no other option, and getting into people's lives and, having a baby screaming in the background became normal. And
Right. Totally.
That's actually nice. Yeah. That we don't have
Well, pre-COVID, I hated doing video. Like, I hated it. Like, I don't like to use that word, but because it's such a powerful negative word, but I really was uncomfortable with doing video. So what COVID did is it gave me the opportunity to be able to get better at it. So I started a video series, and I started doing more of these Zoom calls, and I started doing video casts, similar to what we're doing now. And I was able to get more experience. And it was as a result of COVID. So I think there are two types of people during COVID. I think there are people who dug deep and found ways to grow and to bring more value. And then there were people who didn't. And COVID, for me, was an opportunity to get better at my trade, feel more comfortable on camera, learn more, take time to obviously spend more time with my family, which, as we all feel right now, it's time for everyone to go back to school. But
Totally. And talking about your family, and we can wrap with this, you do it all. You really do it all. You're a single mother. You are single-handedly building and executing on every single marketing campaign across 5 brands. You are holding your own on your own personal brand. And, now I just learned about all the training that you're doing for social media for your staff, for the staff at Celebrity. How do you do it? Do you have a secret sauce you could share with us, please? Because I know that I would benefit from that.
Well, I have an amazing support system. So I have an amazing babysitter, and my family lives nearby. So that system of support, I also have really great friends that live nearby that also have children. So having that support system in my life has really helped me with being able to accomplish the things that I've wanted to. Not to mention, I also work for a company that has given me the flexibility during this time to work out of my house when I need to. So if there's one thing that I can change about our industry, and really any industry, is giving parents the ability to have the flexibility, because you don't have to be in the office to accomplish and to work and to get things done. You can really be anywhere, as we've proven over the last 8 months, to get anything that you need accomplished.
That's great. And before we sign off, and thank you so much for your time, this has been incredibly insightful. Is there any last thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
Having a plan is really the biggest piece of advice that I could give to anyone who's looking to create a story for themselves through social media. Just write it all down. Find ways that differentiate yourself from anyone else, and dig deep into who you are and how professionally you can help others. And to me, that's been a recipe for success.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. You're such a leader in the space, outside the space. I call you my little celebrity. So I'm so
ridiculous. Thank you.
I'm sure our listeners absolutely loved this podcast. And if you did, please subscribe, InsideAuto Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much again, Melanie.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.